What's the most awkward thing you've witnessed at a high school reunion? I play in a band. We got booked by a restaurant for some class reunion. I show up to set up for the gig, and it's my fucking class. I wasn't even invited. A guy from our class passed away from cancer shortly before our 20th reunion. He was never super popular but was pretty well known across our class. During the awards speech section of the night, the lady, our class president, I think, was trying to get the crowd to settle down for a moment of silence. You could tell it meant a lot to her as she started getting heated. The crowd started shushing one another, and it got just quiet enough to hear somebody say, "Geez, did somebody die or something?" At my 10th, the organizers gave awards to people for various reasons. One girl from our class was given an award for having the most kids of anyone there. She'd had 4 by different guys, which was part of the announcement. The look on her face as she slinked up to the podium said it all. Similar thing happened at church when I was a kid. They were giving out small gifts for certain milestones. So they would call out something like "most kids," then ask mothers to keep their hands up while they counted up until there was only one left. After they did oldest mother, I assume only for symmetry, they did youngest mother. I think when they got down lower than 22, they realized where this was going. So to a few shocked gasps from a very old, conservative congregation, a 14-year-old girl went up to get congratulated for her pregnancy. She may have been the first teenage mother congratulated by a Baptist church since Mary. Reminds me of Homer Simpson's high school reunion awards: shortest distance traveled, most hair lost, lowest paying job, most weight gained, most improved odor. 10-year reunion held at a bar owned by former classmate. Started at 10 p.m. Owner told people adults over 21 only. People said they needed to bring their kids and were told no. Several people brought their babies and toddlers anyway. Parents drank like teenagers and the kids ran wild. Owner called cops who watched the parents be negligent. Parents escorted out by some cops and their kids were taken out by others. My wife, at the time, and I had dated all through HS and college. We married and had a child. We still had a few close friends we graduated with that were going as well. I would say there was about a 70% turnout. We had a good time and everyone got pretty drunk. We all mingled and my wife talked to a guy who she had cheated on me with right after HS. They didn't speak for more than 3 minutes. They hadn't spoken since high school almost 10 years before. We had moved past treason and had a family. At least that's what I thought. Less than a month after the reunion I could tell that something wasn't right. When I asked her about it, she told me she wasn't happy and wanted a divorce. We had been together for a very long time and I was devastated. After a week of feeling like I had failed and doing everything I could to win her back, I discovered she had been having an affair with that same guy. Haven't had a high school reunion yet, but here's a fun one from my mom's 3rd reunion. She went with my dad back to her hometown for the reunion. My dad grew up in a different place, so he didn't know anybody there. Bored out of his mind, he decided to have some fun and found a way to discreetly ask someone who the biggest juvenile delinquent, troublemaker was in their graduating class. Let's call him Albert Davis. So my dad went to the name tag table and found Albert Davis's name tag. He put it on and went around saying hi to everyone just to watch their reactions, because most of them assumed that Albert Davis was in prison. My mom did not think it was funny. Had a friend do the same. Guy whose tag he took is 172 centimeters. He's 208 centimeters. Look on people's faces was worth it. Someone made a speech along the lines of, "To all of those that felt picked on or bullied, I have something to say to you." She then started to sing "Let It Go" from Frozen. Was the person a bully by any random coincidence? At my 10th year HS reunion, a guy I hated and who hated me showed up and came directly toward me. Not saying anything at all to me, he then engaged the person standing right next to me on my left. He proceeded to move around the room talking to literally everyone there, only 33 people in my class, and stopping with the person on my right. Didn't so much as acknowledge my existence the whole rest of the day. It was super weird at the time, but many years later it was the most memorable thing that happened. I laugh about it now. I was there with a guy friend when he saw his ex. They approached each other, him going in for a hug and her extending her hand to shake. When they each realized what the other was doing, she put her arms out for a hug, and he extended his hand to shake. By the time they touched, it was just a jumble of hands and arms weirdly touching each other. He started by saying, "Sir, how have you been?" I just said, excuse me," and got the hell away from them. Moral of the story: if you go for the hug, you got to go for the hug. I went to my wife's last reunion a few months ago. The day of the reunion, she got a call that it was cancelled. Apparently, 5 years earlier, a classmate got creepy and stalkery with another classmate. The people organizing the reunion invited him not to show up. Then the guy posted on Facebook some vague threats. They did actually change the venue and have the reunion, but there were many people that couldn't be contacted with the updated info. My friend said her cousin's high school reunion was really awkward because this guy ran up and kissed his high school girlfriend without her asking and then got in a fist fight with her husband. Did not turn out well from what I hear. My mom's 35th high school reunion was at a bar that I frequent quite a bit. I walked in with my mom and went up to a bartender that I know to order a drink for my mom and I. He looked up at my mother and I and immediately got super shy and weird and then said, "You're the daughter of my mom's name?" Apparently he had a huge crush on my mom in high school and my uncle beat the shit out of him because he creeped my mom out. Very awkward indeed. The captain of the football team was a pretty sad sight. He looked like hell and was so proud of sneaking booze in with his flask. I mean, it was a cash bar but the prices were reasonable. I went with my wife to her reunion. I may have had 1 or 3 before arriving, and when I got there I remembered hearing a story of a guy who was my wife's 3rd grade boyfriend. Later in life he had a rough time of things: drugs, alcohol, run-ins with the law, etc. As a joke, I wrote his name on my name badge and went about my business. Not long after, a rather strong and stocky woman turned around, looked at me, then at my name tag. When she saw the name she looked up at me, screamed excitedly as loud as I've ever heard, bear hugged me while lifting me off the ground, and bit my neck. No blood, but decent bruise. Not me but my brother-in-law's high school reunion. A guy that was severely bullied in high school started a Facebook group to get the ball rolling on planning a high school reunion. He planned the venue, food, drinks, and asked everyone pay a ticket price to cover it all. He organized the money go into a provided bank account, received 200 plus people's HS reunion dollaritos and fucked off. Never to be heard of again. I've never laughed so hard in my life. That is the greatest act of high school revenge I've ever heard. Apparently, every year, my brother's graduating class gets together at this one neighborhood bar over Thanksgiving. It's not a formal thing, but anyone can come and they all have a few drinks, and it's totally normal. I literally had no idea about it, and apparently my brother didn't either, because 3 or 4 years ago we showed up to get a drink together alone and his entire graduating class of 50-ish people were there. Now, my brother was super nerdy and kind of an awkward kid, but the Marines and college turned that around and now he's an outgoing, sociable guy. Coming out of the closet once he hit 23 helped too, since he was comfortable in his own skin and it showed outwardly. Thing was, no one seemed to know he was gay. And this is small town in the Midwest, where there's nothing else to do but gossip, and since no one leaves, everyone knows everyone else. I literally spent all night cringing, while my brother dodged the advances of a bunch of girls aggressively hitting on him. Since the dating pool is the same guys they went to high school with and he was fresh meat, they were all coming on super strong, and it was bad. Then everything got even worse when he told them he was living on the East Coast because he was gay and married, and his husband's job was there. People coming up to me asking me what's up and seem to know a whole deal about me while I have no memory of who they are at all. Mine is in a few months, but the awkwardness has already started. First, I never had any plans to go. Things like that really aren't my speed. I'm not a mingler and I always want to leave right away. Besides, I'll be away on military orders by that time anyway, so there's no way I can go. So a few weeks ago I get added to my school 10 here reunion page on FB by someone I don't recognize. Immediately think, nope, and leave the page, then don't think about it again. I got a phone call a few days later from an unknown number. Not unusual since lots of people call me for work stuff. I answer and get this really enthusiastic. "OMGHI, it's Nain, how are you?" I apologize and tell her I think she has the work number. I don't know anyone with that name. She says my whole name and says she got my number from friend from school. She was the class president, but I honest to God didn't remember BR. She asks about the reunion. I politely tell her I'm not going, I have other obligations. She says, I don't know if that will work, I'll be in touch, and hangs up. I'm like, what a fact, but whatever. A few days later I get added back to the same group by her. Again I leave it. Not 30 minutes later I get a phone call from her. She wants to know why I left the group again, and again I tell her I have other obligations. She told me that, you don't skip reunions, we've planned this for years. You'll be there. So sarcastically I said, okay, well, save me a spot then. And up. A third time I'm added to this group. I'm like FS and leave again. I get a call, and this time she's calling to tell me that my ticket and dinner money are due by the end of the week. I politely remind her that I'm not going. She gets snooty and informs me that the venue and catering have already been reserved and that I will need to pay for my meal as the fund would not cover it. Once again I remind her that I was never attending and that it isn't my fault that she paid in advance without a proper count. She then told me, you don't have choice, it's already paid for, so you have to be there. I said, alright, bye, wrong name, and hung up again. I ended up blocking her on FB, ignoring her calls, and leaving the group 2 more times when other members of the reunion committee added me back in. When my lady teacher came up to me, kissed me on the cheek and told me she loved me. She was very drunk. I felt very awkward. When I was like 6 I went to my dad's small town 30-year reunion. His ex-fiancée, not my mom, was dressed in her prom dress, and kept talking to me saying she should have been my mommy. Even then I knew that was weird. Keep your crazy in, lady. A girl turned into a boy and wasn't allowed to go in because she changed her name. A kid in my class, 1982, was hit by a car during our junior year and wound up in a persistent vegetative state. We had heard bits and pieces of information about him in the years after, but none of it sounded reliable. He was dead. He was still in a coma. He had come out of it. He was normal. He had become a born-again Christian. He lived at home and couldn't do anything for himself. You name it, we had heard it. Every reunion, there's still misinformation being passed around about the guy. In our 10-year reunion program he was on the in memoriam page, then it was pointed out he wasn't dead. Last fall we had our 35th reunion and he was announced along with the, let's take a minute to remember our departed classmates. And then others pointed out that they thought he was still alive and living in Florida now. I don't think we'll ever find out the truth. Not that it matters though. He was a fucking dick anyway. Do you have a similar story? Leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.